to Russ Vought right now. You remember him, the former White House Office Management and Budget Director, kind enough to join us. Russ, this green push, you know, I heard one Republican characterize it as Democrats trying to get what they want when they still have the numbers to try. But it's hanging by a thread even among Democrats. So where do you think this is going?
Well, Neil, we live in the modern phenomena is that corporations are no longer just corporations engaged in commerce. Right now, they are in our new world that we live in. They are arms of the regime, whether those are big tech firms suppressing speech on behalf of the regime, or whether those are corporations pushing ESG reforms and shaping the market using their massive wealth. And now you have the government on top of that coming and saying, we're going to join that effort with these disclosure regulations, which are not popular. And we probably have a majority vote under the Congressional Review Act to get rid of them, certainly with a new majority of Republican Congress. So I think that there is a lot of potential to stop ESG in its tracks, but it's going to take fortitude from Congress, and it's going to take fortitude from states to begin to say the only way we can deal with this is if we are creative with a public policy response that says these multinational corporations that are shaping this marketplace is not doing it on the basis of the American people's best interest, and we're going to step in and take away government benefits in response.
You know, I'm just wondering what's lost in the argument, no matter how people feel about this Republican initiative to stop this Democratic initiative, is how much it costs average folks. I don't think they've connected the dots on that. Have you? And what would the impact be?
Well, if you're saying to the reporter was talking about the extent to which the Democrats argue this is something that, you know, fossil fuels are still, there's a relationship under ESG, but it's different. When you have the ESG component, it changes these corporations into which they are no longer in the business of providing a lot more energy at a lot reduced price. And so you're incentivizing them to get involved in renewables and to make decisions that are not in the best interest of what a consumer might experience. And so that, I think, is an example of the extent to which these are leading to less service, worse service, and higher prices for the people that are trying to engage in commerce on behalf of their family and their businesses.
You know, while I have you here, Russ, the Democratic Pennsylvania senatorial candidate, John Fetterman, is looking at high gas prices and blaming the oil companies for that and saying that the company executives should be prosecuted for those high gas prices. What do you think of that?
I think that's insane. I think that's weaponizing the judicial system, law enforcement against companies for them just engaging in the reality of the economic system that Democrats are giving them. And as a result, we have some structural issues as a result of the Biden administration's and Democrat policies around the states that are causing high gas prices and high energy prices. They're necessarily going up because of these policies, and then to try to come on behalf and weaponize the law enforcement process in such a way to go after these companies, I think it's terrible policy, but I also think it's terrible politics, in that the American people have a gut sense about these kinds of things, and I don't think they're going to be incredibly supportive of it.
Now, as a former OMB director, it's kind of outside your feeling. I know when you were at the OMB, you didn't ever like to talk about the Fed, and touche to you. I am wondering, though, this fear the markets have, and it's evidenced itself over the last few trading days, that the Fed's going to be aggressively raising interest rates, almost regardless of the data that comes out, whether it's slow or not. How do you feel about that and the impact it could have?
Well, I hope the Fed continues to go forward with their rate increasing. I don't think we have enough data to say that inflation has slowed. We've had one little dip in a month, and there's still a lot of underlying data that suggests that the housing and shelter costs have not factored into the indexes, and they're quite delayed. And so I think the Fed needs to block out a little bit and keep moving forward. And I think the market's a little too inclined to just want to get back to the good old days. And I think that we're in a corrective, and we need to be in a corrective, and that we're going to have a fundamentally stronger economy if the Fed is allowed to do its work, and if the Biden administration stops spending money and stops its anti-regulatory, its pro-regulatory reforms.
Russ, good seeing you again. We'll see what happens because we're a long way from seeing any of this resolved. Russ Vought, the former OMB director for President Trump.